Hello all, welcome back. This is Vaishnavi. Now today in this video you will learn how to use the HC SR04 ultrasonic distance sensor with an Arduino. Note that the HC SR04 is very similar to the ping, another popular ultrasonic distance sensor. Look at in this picture. The main difference is it has only 3 pins. Means one ground pin, one positive supply, power pin 5 volt, and one is the signal pin. So this single pin for the trigger and return pulses. The HCSR04 has 4 pins and uses separate pins for transmitter and receiving signal. Means it uses separate pins for trigger and the return pulses. So we have a separate video. Here we will focus on the HCSR04. You can see there has a 4 pins VCC, trigger, echo and ground. To connect the HC SR04 to your Arduino, you will need male to female jumper wires. If you were just testing the sensor and don't have any other parts in your circuits, you can connect it directly to the Arduino instead of using a breadboard. I have the VCC pin going to 5 volts, the ground pin going to Arduino ground pin, and the trigger pin going to pin number 7 and echo pin go into Arduino pin number 8. Now if you want to check the sensor data sheet, so you can just download and check it. I already explained how does ultrasonic sensor. I explained the formula as well. Now look at program the sensor where you are actually going to start. With the built-in Arduino example program for the ping sensor and just make a few simple modification. How you can find this program? So you can find this program by going to File, Example, Sensors and Ping, PNG. Once you have opened it, we can take a quick look. The ping sensors uses a single pin as both of the transmitter and receiver. Make sure I'm writing the program for the 4-pin ultrasonic sensor. Okay, so how to write? So here both an output for the trigger pulse and then it switches that pin to an input to measure the return pulse. The ultrasonic sensor, it has the 2 different pins. So we are going to declare separate variable for those pins. So I'm going to write const int echo. This echo pins is equal to 8 because I'm using the pin number 8. Now I am going to change the name of the trigger pin. It match the label on the sensors. Then in my setup functions, I am going to declare those pins as input and output using the pin mode command. So pin mode trigger pin comma output because that is my output pin for the trigger pulse. And then pin mode echo pin comma input because that is my input pin for the return pulse. Down here in our loop function, I can delete these 2 pins mode commands because they are no longer needed again. The ping sensor is switching the back and the forth between output and input with each measurement. This ultrasonic sensor has 2 dedicated pins that we only need to set up once in setup function. I am going to delete this pin mode command. Delete this. This pin mode command, make sure I change the variable names. I am going to use the trigger pin variable to send the trigger pulse and then we are going to use the pulse in functions to measure the length of return pulse. What I am calling echo pin finally. If you remember, you might have seen in datasheet, otherwise the ultrasonic sensor expects 10 microsecond trigger pulse. I am going to change this variable value from 5 to 10. The trigger pulse and now I should be all set. So you can see those lines of code. We have modified the ping program to use 2 pin instead of everything else can remain the same like the conversion from that pulse duration in microsecond to a distance in either inches or centimeters. If you upload the code and open the serial monitor window and move your hand front of the sensor, so you should see the distance readings change. Now, if you are trying to decide between the ping and HCSR04, note that HCSR04 is much cheaper but does not always seems to work as well for smaller objects. For example, as I move this large flat piece of cardboard back and in front of the sensor, you can see that this circuit works pretty well. The LEDs lights up depending on how far away the cardboard. I move my hand back and forth, back and front of the sensor. Sometimes it seems a little more glitchy and some of the LEDs lighting up when they should not. If you compare this to the performance of the ping sensor in our LED is more consistent. Now this is the HCSR04 ultrasonic distance sensors and Arduino. It's working.